All right, hello everyone. So after a brief hiatus, we are back with another Coffee with Corvirtus. I'm Sam, and I'm joined once again by my colleague Jennifer Hugo, who owns Corvirtus and leads our team. So Jen, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Sam. Great to see you.
You as well. So as most of our viewers know, Jen and I share the same background, which is industrial organizational psychology, the science of human behavior and performance in the workplace. So in our last video, we did something a bit different that you all seem to enjoy, which Jen spent some time interviewing me about my journey into the field of IO, my experiences so far, lessons learned up to this point. So today, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to learn instead about Jen's path into the field and the experiences that she's had and the infinite wisdom and knowledge that she has to share with us. So to get started, Jen, maybe you can share how you first discovered IO psychology and why or how it grabbed your attention.
Yeah, so I've always been fascinated with human behavior, and I was thinking about different examples. And when I was in graduate school, one of my good friends, Alicia Colin, who I helped with her master's thesis, she was studying schadenfruede, which is feeling some sense of pleasure or enjoyment at someone else's pain. And I participated in one of her studies, and I was asked to think about like the thing that comes to mind when I think about schadenfreude. And what actually came to mind were some interesting events in 8th grade when I was working really hard on a group project or presentation, and I was with some people that just weren't bringing their A game. And the teacher called them out in front of the whole class when when we presented, and I felt a little bit of enjoyment over that. And I think that story kind of gets at how I was always thinking about human behavior and interested in different things. And another flashback to middle school, we took something called the differential aptitude test in 8th grade. And I remember I put in engineering because my dad was an engineer, medicine, and the social sciences. And it really kicked out engineering because of interests. Both medicine and engineering, it said I had the ability for, but that social sciences was really where I had all that passion and a lot of interests and things like that. So I was very, very lucky that I took AP psychology, advanced placement psychology, in I think my junior year, in my junior year of high school, and was exposed to that. And even though it's a big concern right now that industrial organizational psychology is not covered in intro psych textbooks that so many, I mean, probably everyone or most everyone who's been to college takes intro psych, or a lot of people do, and it's either very briefly mentioned or not mentioned at all, unfortunately, in a lot of cases. Well, I don't think there was a chapter on IO, there was a really beefy appendix in the back of the book that I dug into, and I started looking at what programs were involved and things like that. And I was in Indiana at the time and noticed that Purdue University had a pretty good program. So that somewhat directed me for undergrad. I was still very interested in all the social sciences and liberal arts as well, and kind of explored all that area, but psychology was always there, and industrial organizational as well. I think the big thing that I was interested in, especially with my work experiences and seeing my parents and their work experiences, is how we're at this nexus of two important objectives: helping people thrive and grow at work, making work better, and then also that point of helping the business thrive and succeed, so it can provide even more for its employees and create more good in the world. So that's the long answer of how I was exposed to IO.
No, thank you for sharing that. And it's such a compelling and captivating reason to get into the field too, to really help people thrive at work. I think I read an article pretty recently that on average we spend 10 actual years of our life doing something work related, whether it's like in the office or working remotely. So to be able to set up work structures and processes and different types of things at work that helps us enjoy it better and have that sense of satisfaction and fulfillment, that's certainly important. So that's really great that was compelling to you as well. And in your, just out of curiosity for me, In your AP psych class in high school, did you guys cover IO at all, or was it just kind of a little snippet?
I honestly don't remember. I remember
Okay.
seeing that the appendix in the textbook. Of course, I was digging into all the things, like probably like read the entire textbook within the first few weeks of the semester, and was just thinking about different things because I had waited to take that class for a while.
Mhm.
But it might have been, it was probably briefly mentioned, but it definitely, I know the AP test content when I studied for the test, it wasn't very critical, unfortunately, to the curriculum.
Got it. Understood. Yeah, that's not super surprising. I know that the textbooks I had, even in undergrad, just yeah, same as you, a little appendix in the back end, briefly glazing over it. So definitely
Mm-hmm.
not something that's extensively covered, but great that we're getting an opportunity to
Yeah.
talk about it right now and kind of share some of, some insights into the field with some people who may not be as familiar with it. So was IO your first interest in psych, or were you originally interested in like a different path within psych, like maybe a clinical route?
I played with a lot of different ideas and wanted to explore a lot of different areas. I know I didn't take my first IO college class until fall of my junior year because I was exploring other areas and thinking about things. I considered medicine for a while. I just wanted to make sure all my bases were covered. And that was kind of a good approach to have. I did have a very liberal education. I managed to be Phi Beta Kappa, in part because I had that liberal base because I took so many different things. And I value that versus, trying to take every possible psych class that I could, even though I had that inclination early on. So I did consider clinical. I went to Purdue University, which is quite large. So because my biggest passion wasn't necessarily clinical, I remember I wanted to get into a lab to do some research, and preference was kind of given to people that really knew they wanted to be clinical. Um, but I did do some exploring, but nothing really. I know development psychology, studying the lifespan, that was something that I considered, but always kept kind of going back to IO.
Or yeah, that was kind of the same for me as well. I definitely took some time to explore different areas, but ultimately, same for me. IO was
Mm-hmm.
very compelling and captivating. So in terms of your early experiences in IO, I know you mentioned that you took some classes. Did you have any involvement with like internships or like research labs in undergrad, or did most of that kind of come to fruition once you entered your doctorate program?
That's another really good question. I did not do any internships in undergrad. I did do, however, I found some really cool work experiences working with children, which might have overlapped with why I was considering developmental psychology for a while. I worked at a 8-week sleepaway camp for girls. And then after wanting a little bit more work-life separation, I did a daycare summer after my sophomore year, which was really cool. One true thread that, again, gives me some insights, early insights into how work is structured and how it affects you, is both of those were really autonomous. So I had like a budget that I could spend. I was pretty much on my own with kids all day. I ran arts and crafts for the camp, and then the second summer I was in charge of 5-year-olds about to start kindergarten. So entrusted with their care. And I remember feeling, especially with the 5-year-olds, like I maybe didn't have the background or training necessary to be doing what I was doing solo. So I just tried to kind of keep moving. And if I'm on my feet and actively engaged the whole time, hopefully everything will be okay. But I did really appreciate the autonomy uh, and trust that was put in me. And also, so those were some insights for me around how those affect your work experience versus other jobs where maybe you're more closely watched or don't have as much span of control. So those were demanding roles, but I had a lot of control over what I did and how I handled situations. So that was one piece. And then another was just the degree of connection that I had with both the students or the kids at the camp and at the daycare, and being able to see relationships evolve over time with them as well as my colleagues, and the parents. So that was a cool customer relationship because the parents would come every day to pick up their kids from the daycare. And from the summer, I saw the parents a couple times, and just hearing how they appreciated the activities I was doing, how it was better than what they had seen before. And then especially at the daycare, 5-year-olds, a bit unpredictable. So getting to see how I could work with the parents to improve behavior, prepare their kid as much as possible for the coming year in kindergarten, because this was also their preschool for most of them, like a continuation of their preschool. So we talked about, not wanting them to lose knowledge and stuff like that. I would give kids big vocabulary words and try to coach them on how to use them with their parents when they would go home. So I had a little girl that really liked my class ring, and I told her that it was an amethyst and to go home and tell her mom she wants an amethyst. And she did that. And after meals, I was like, you can say that you're satiated, meaning you're full, and instead of saying you're stuffed or whatever. And so some went home and did that, or just other big like GRE vocab words, and parents thought that was funny and appreciated that. So I got to see, and especially over time reflecting on it, although I can sometimes be introverted, I do love long-term relationships with people that build results. And from other, like some of my first jobs in retail or restaurants, like just that long-term relationship was really neat.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And just from listening to you talk about that, it sounds like that, especially with that early experience with like with the camp and stuff, and then being able to interact with the kids and those different experiences that you had, it sounds like that job and those experiences contained a lot of the things that we know are things that like make a job satisfactory, and things that probably really resonated with you. So thinking about things like autonomy and having the freedom to make decisions, and structure out different operations and processes, and the freedom to perform independently, and the significance of what you're doing, feeling that impact and value of what you're doing every day. So that's great. So next, maybe we could talk a little bit about, so you went to Purdue for undergrad, and then maybe if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your PhD experience, like what led you to choose the program that you went to, what were some of your experiences like there, and then what ultimately led you to pursue the career path that you chose to pursue.
Yeah, well, I had a tremendous undergrad advisor where I worked in his lab and did just a lot of wonderful things and had great experiences. And he went to Bowling Green, Charlie Reeve, who's now at UNC Charlotte. So that led me to apply to Bowling Green, and I got in, which was excellent. And I think I was just looking for the best possible program that would be supportive, definitely have a supportive environment, would get me out in a timely manner, and that really fit the bill. So it was also, this didn't go into my decision making, a lot of IO programs happen to be in the Midwest, and my parents lived in the Chicagoland area, so it was about 4 hours away, which was really perfect of being a different place. But I would be able to go home like at 5 o'clock on a Friday, get in around 9 o'clock at night, and then if I didn't have anything on Monday, leave Monday for classes Tuesday and stuff. So that, I didn't do that all the time, but every few months it made weekend home trips pretty easy.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so I looked at kind of the collegiality of the program, time to complete. I was back and forth between, really with a PhD, there's 2 tracks. You can go academic and be a professor, which I actually did after graduate school. And you can also go and do amazing things in the applied world. And so I wanted a program that would support both of those things. And it just felt like a really great place.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It sounds like you had a really good support system and network there, just lots of great opportunities. And then with those opportunities, that I'm sure those certainly helped guide your decisions about which career path to choose, like right out of the gate. So maybe we can talk about that for a minute as well. So initially you went into the academia or the more academic route. What kinds of experiences or things led you to do that over like the applied route at first?
Yeah, that's a profound question. I think I felt a really strong connection with the faculty and with the experiences I was having, and that just kind of led me towards that track. I think initially I was maybe more towards the applied side, And I fell in love with that idea of creating research, teaching students, spreading the mission and all that we do through teaching, and then also creating research. And so that led me down that path. And I had a lot of great coaching to get me there. What caused me to change was just this itch to work with organizations directly and wanting to do more applied work. And the more I was thinking about it, and I also, it's kind of almost hedonistic, but with what we do, we're able to see results so much faster and more frequently than with teaching. Teaching's a lot like sort of, being a physical trainer, like you're trying to get people to do things that are uncomfortable at the time so that they see rewards. Only with teaching, sometimes there's a greater lag time than working with someone in a physical training capacity. And with what we do, we're able to put solutions into place right away and start seeing results. And we know like what we're doing is definitely going to help them. The lag time with research, well, I so value and so respect everyone who engages in that as part of their primary occupation. It's just a longer lag time, whereas what we do is we just get to see the results faster, and see people excited and reduce their pain points faster and quicker. And so that, is, I think both are equally valuable. Just for me, being able to help people in that immediate way is great. And then I also love to go back to like that eighth grade example of doing an in-class presentation. I love presenting and talking and sharing with people in a professional capacity. So really I loved presenting in school and doing that sort of thing, and getting to do presentations with clients and share things with them or share things with prospects. That's even better than doing like a classroom presentation. And I really, really enjoyed classroom presentations. So in speeches, I was on speech and debate and all that good stuff and drama. So that is also very gratifying for me as well.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And that's a really good way of putting that too, because I think often people struggle with, especially with, at the doctorate level, do I go the academic route? Do I go the applied route? And I think that's a really good way to kind of factor that decision, because, with that academic route, you obviously have the research experience, the theory behind and the science behind the solutions that we provide. And then so that's really valuable knowledge to be able to bring that over to the practitioner side and then actually implement those solutions to see the impact that they have. So that's really tremendous, and great that you've had both sides of the coin there. A couple more questions before we run too long here. Just thinking about the past 7 years or so that you've been with Corvirtus and your experiences in the applied setting and space, what has surprised you, on the practitioner side of things, and kind of what challenges have you experienced and been able to overcome along the way?
Right. That I think it comes down to influence, being able to, we know the results and the potential of what we do, but being able to influence people to want to use the solutions, be committed to them. Everything comes down to communication and influence, like I was talking about before. So that has been the most surprising. In graduate school, we covered how to build the tools, but we didn't cover so much how you present that tool to a layperson or someone without our background. So for example, I took classes where we would develop an assessment or develop a measure of something, but how would you take that measure and communicate it into a tool that someone could say, okay, we're measuring confidence. Well, what do the results mean? How do we take that meaning and next steps and action plan and get that to someone? So that was something, results reporting, absolutely critical, how we build assessment results, whether that's for development, succession planning, selection, getting your head behind that layperson. I got some great exposure to that through Bowling Green's in-house consulting firm called IPRA, Institute for Psychological Research and Application, but doing it as a professional where you're trying to build those relationships on your own and are solely responsible in leading that is absolutely different, and just doing it full time versus a project that might span over a semester or two, but doing it at the volume that we do is very immersive, and also being responsible for that person that gets that initial connection. Everything we do comes down to influence and communication, whether that's the marketing stuff that we do, serving our clients, just and how you build those relationships and trust and move things forward. And I'm about to be joined by my research assistant here. Is absolutely important.
Yeah, I completely agree, and especially, you know, I think we both understand how challenging it is, especially coming, you know, from a program or even in the office every day. You know, we're technically, or we're consistently speaking like the same scientific language to one another, but then when you're communicating with more of a layperson audience, you obviously have to like shift and tailor your communication to explain some of those more technical concepts in a way that's understandable for them. So,
and even that's a great point, that the collegial aspect. So I was very sheltered. So because I went to college and I went straight to graduate school, I did not interact much with people that weren't in psychology, getting an advanced degree, weren't in academia, you know, got careers going right away after school. And so when I joined Corvirtus and, you know, needing to communicate just within the team, our teammates that don't have our IO background, like our programming team, needing to communicate them the why. And there was a really simple thing that happened where I just communicated how I was looking at cognitive results and sort of looking at if we eliminate people that may not have been paying much attention to the items, how that affects how it predicts performance. And I was just doing these basic things of looking at the distribution of scores and kicking out outliers and people on the low end. And there was just this connection that I had with our team when I explained the why behind what I was doing, that a light bulb went off. And just that simply explaining these things on a really basic level, even when it's not very complex what you're doing, can just add buy-in and build that connection with people that you're working with. So that was interesting as well, and just great to be exposed to people from so many diverse backgrounds after if we count from when I graduated high school to when I started Corvirtus, about 13 years of, you know, academic involvement and being mostly in that world. The last 7 years have been fun to get to know people who are experts in their respective fields and have different backgrounds.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful, and really appreciate you sharing your experiences and your background. I've been grilling you with a lot of questions for about the past 20 minutes here. So one last question, and I feel like you kind of indirectly touched on this already, but just, you know, any additional skills for success or advice that you might give to someone who's maybe looking to enter the field for the first time, or maybe, you know, interested in moving to more of like the applied space, anything that might be helpful for them?
Yeah, try to talk less. It's really easy to want to share all our knowledge with someone right away, and asking questions and listening is incredibly important when we're talking with a business leader about their problems, whether that's a current client or prospect. The whole how to ask the right questions and listening. Another skill that I'm always working on is negotiating. When you have a difficult problem and you're trying to build buy-in and get everyone committed to a solution and find a solution, how do you negotiate? So I've been, there's a masterclass actually, Masterclass, that program by Chris Voss on negotiation that I've been doing, and just exploring all the materials out there in the world on the topics that we address, whether that's diversity, which is so critical right now, and inclusion, hiring, any number of different things. Just always be learning and looking at different approaches. I've also gained I've had like family members who have been ill, my parents, and just learning from other fields like physicians and things of how they handle a difficult conversation, or how they approach building buy-in for something, how they explain the complexities of oncology, for example. There's some takeaways and things like that. So just expose yourself to different sources of information. Not everything is in a a scholarly journal for your field, but you know, the Wall Street Journal, other perspectives as well, looking at trying to talk to HR leaders to understand what they're thinking about and how they view things. All of those are important, and always coming back to how you can, what's that person's need, and how can we best meet those needs and build support so they understand where we're coming from.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, even, you know, once we leave school, you know, the learning never stops, even though you might not have the structure in place of like, this is what you need to learn, you know, within this time frame. There's still always opportunities to learn and stay up to date on best practices and trends within the industry. So wonderful that, you know, we're both continuing to do that.
We are.
That about wraps up all of my questions that I have for today. But Jen, we tremendously value you and your leadership and everything that you do for our team. For all of our viewers, we hope that you continue to enjoy these videos, and we'll be continuing to put out new videos in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for those. Otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks. Everyone.